and we're talking about that upper trunk. You know, for the most part, if we're getting somebody weight bearing on that limb, the upper extremity, it's because it's weak, right? So we're kind of rolling to that side. I'm scooting over just so I don't have to freak you out. Let's roll you off the bed, right? So then, you know, what's your name? Carrie? Okay, so Carrie, he's having trouble with the upper trunk. Maybe I'm modifying the lower body, maybe I'm not. But I'm helping him, like this is his hemiplegic side. I'm making sure it's in a nice, well-adjusted position to weight bear when we're ready to weight bear on it. 9 times out of 10, if he's having trouble transitioning onto that arm, it's because this side is not rolling over enough fully. So if you were to try to roll but not bring that shoulder across, show me what that might look like. Yeah, exactly. So he's kind of stuck. Maybe he's not understanding how to move, right? So this, he's trying so hard. So this might be a situation where I might be helping him here to fully get over, right? And he ends up here. But now the hardest part of transitioning is from here to the weight bearing, right? If I'm sitting him up though, the legs are probably gonna be off the bed, right? So gravity's already helping me. And then I'm able to kind of come under and give him a little boost. And then we might just be weight bearing here, right? I might be holding him and getting him in a little bit better position here. We come fully up to a sitting and he's just weight bearing, and you know, this is his strong side, right? So I'm like, touch my hand. Now he has to weight bear even more, touch my hand, right? So this is all an intervention to build on the muscles that are preventing him from coming from that sideline to sit position, which is a more complex position than just rolling itself. I think, you know, another way to do this, if he's already here and we're supporting him, we can have him bring his legs back up, right, but not roll back. And this would be kind of the reverse when he's coming back to supine. And this might be a place where we work on just weight bearing and strengthening. So, you know, maybe I give him a little help, take a little weight off, put a little weight on. Maybe I give him a little more downward pressure, or I do some of that. Tell me if I'm using the wrong PNF term. What's dynamic reversal is dynamic stabilization, right? That's when he's in an isometric hold and I'm kind of pushing him in different directions, right? So all of this is working on him, building on that position, strengthening in that position. This can be done in prone, this can be done sitting with a wedge in front, like a modified prone. It's all about understanding the muscle he's using and what he needs to do in order to kind of use it effectively to complete the functional task. That makes sense? So I think this was like the biggest question people had is like, how do I get to this position if they can't? It's the hardest thing for the patient, so it makes sense. So thinking about why they can't get there, what's weak, do I want to help them, do I want to modify it? Those are all different ways to do it. All right, thank you. All right, actually you can stay for the lower trunk. So in preparation for the lower trunk, it's a very similar situation to scooting. It's just a different instruction, right? So if he has extensor tone here, right, I'm giving him some work to get him back into a flexion, into a weight-bearing position. I might work on just lifting, right? If that's the part, if he's trying to roll and he's kind of stuck, then we might go back to this, like try to lift your hip up, right? This is all the stuff we worked on with the downward pressure, a little bit of the distraction to help get the hip up. And then once he's up, you know, and he kind of gets that piece, lift up and turn, bring your knee across. Good. If I was to modify this like we did with the legs for the upper trunk, what would I do with the upper trunk in this case? Right, so I can put this across. I can take this out for a second. I can roll this guy up, right? This is what we can do, a wedge under the pelvis, but we can also do a wedge under the shoulder. And now Carrie can work with just bringing his knee across. Good.
Should I grab here?
I could grab here if you didn't want to fall off this little mat. But yeah, your patients, of course, you can ask them to grab the bed rail, but how many of them actually have a bed rail at home? So I typically don't practice with a bed rail, but if you need to, let's say you get them to a position where they can complete the task with a bed rail, so you're holding on here, then I might have them go back and forth. But our goal is not necessarily to have him use all upper extremities. We want the whole body working. So typically with a bed rail, they're pulling. But at the end of the day, independence is independence. If that's working for them, that's what they want, then better real it is, right? Yeah, so then once you're here, with the lowers, another way he could do it is you can bring both knees across, you can do this like windshield wiper deal. He could use some of those like lower extremity patterns to come across, so you can give some resistance there to try to facilitate rolling as well. So those are different ways to facilitate. If they're not working, you go back to your basics. Why isn't it working? Glutes aren't strong, I don't have the range of motion, tones kicking in, and that's where your interventions come in. And you either incorporate them into the functional task, or you break it down to part practice, strengthening, and always return to the functional task. Everyone get that? All right, so let's practice the lowers. Same thing with the prep work. Think about how you might modify it. Think about how you might make it harder for them. I don't think bed mobility is typically a thing I linger on once it's successful, but just for the purposes of getting the wheels turning, think about how you might make it more challenging for your patient as well.